Got my Impaktech in. I originally got it in candy red, but it didn't match the accents on the rest of my bike, so I sanded and spray painted it, so now it matches. I only saw one other video on YouTube about how to install this, but you have to attach that bolt right there, and there's another one inside that tube, same on the other side, but you have to drill through the fairing. So what I'm going to do in order to get the hole perfectly center, I'm going to take some measurements of this tube and then 3D print a piece that I can attach, zip tie, tape, whatever, attach to this tube, and then it's going to give me a piece that comes out and that's perfectly centered with the fairing, and I'll drill into that and get a nice little hole for the Impaktech. This is a pretty rough drawing, but bear with me. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to come back on that tube by 35 millimeters, and that's going to give me enough of a semicircle to really plant it and keep it from shifting. I'm going to have a 5 millimeter face on it that's going to come up that I can butt up against so I can get it really centered and positioned on there. And then off of that, there's going to be a piece on the bottom here. It's going to be 45 millimeters that comes out. And then I'll have a piece that comes up, and that will have the circle that I'll use to drill my pilot hole for the hole saw. Here I am in SolidWorks. I'm taking the measurements I got off the bike, and I'm creating the outside geometry first. I actually messed up that inner hole, the hole that the actual drill bit will go in. I actually forgot to dimension that, but I will go back and correct that later. Adding some fillets in for structural integrity of the print. Adding a flat spot on the bottom so that I can print it straight up without needing much support. I'll save that. And I'll reach a point where I'm trying to shave some material off so that the print doesn't take as long. I don't need that full circle, a partial circle will do. Add another fillet. I go to save that. I'll open Simplify 3D, adjust some settings. I thought the extrusion multiplier would help in reducing how long the print would take. I realized that the hole was way too big. There's no way that drill bit was that size, so I went back and corrected that. 6.5 millimeters, save that, go back to Simplify 3D, apply all my changes, and then I make my file for the 3D printer. Go in and prepare some PLA heating. 200 on the nozzle, 60 on the bed. I'll take those, and I'll be back once that's heated up to swap that filament out. We're going here, so we'll see how that turns out in about an hour. Alright, print's done. Looks pretty good. I'll peel it off and take the support saw. Let's see. Oh yeah. I usually put a glue stick down on the heat bed to keep things in place. But I'll clean those supports up and then take it out to the bike and make sure it fits the way I want it to. Alright, the tool looks pretty good. The hole looks good. A little bump stop. I can hold it there and get the drill going. But I am touching the fairing a little bit, and I think that's pushing this down in this direction. So I'm going to mark that and then Dremel a little bit of that plastic out so it sits even. Alright, I'm firmly pressed against the tube, not touching the fairing, so this is in line, everything square. So that is going to be where I'm going to put the drill bit for the hole saw, and I'm going to have a nice little hole here for the Impaktech. The hole saw worked great. I mean, that's very nice. Caught that fastener a little bit, so I'm going to clean that up with the Dremel. That's pretty much still one piece, so that's fine. Everything's fine. Alright, so I got the hole cleaned up. Got a little dust on there, but that's alright. But you can see, now we have access to that engine mount. And this tool sits just like that. Gives me a dead center hole for that bolt in the back. So that's going to look pretty good. I'm close to pulling this engine mount bolt, but you can see there's a little washer in between the frame and the actual engine. When I pull this bolt out, that's going to fall. So when we go to put the Impaktech on, got to make sure that washer, and there it goes, make sure that washer makes it back where it's supposed to go. Alright, so I pulled this out the pack. This is going to be the spacer for this side of the bike on the engine mount. This slides in there. Got our washer that tried to run away earlier. That's going to end up getting slid back there. And then that long bolt is going to get put through cage with the washer on it. And go through that, through the frame, through this washer, and then go right back into the engine mount. I have loosely mounted this side so that when it comes time, I can get that back half situated. A little bit of wiggle room in there, but I'm going to move on and do the other side. And fortunately, the same measurements apply to the other side of the bike. I'm coming up on that little screw again, so I'm actually going to go ahead and remove that before I go any further. Alright, so here we are again. I'm actually not going to be able to put that fastener back in because I cut clean through the hole, so I'll have to get another method of securing that together, but I don't think that's that bad. A little 3M tape, whatever. But here we are again. Got the tool. Nice clean hole, dead center for the Impaktech. So I'm getting ready to pull this bolt out, which, well, I already did. I'm pulling this bolt out, and I noticed that when I went to snug up the other side, that bolt doesn't necessarily come all the way to the end of the engine mount hole there. Oh, yeah, that's blurry. So I'm thinking I gotta go to hardware store and get me a longer bolt, because the stock bolts that go on the engine mount make it all the way to the other side of the hole. And with the way that this frame is designed, if you're putting these crash bars on and you're trying to do wheelies and stuff, and this is where those front wheel forces are going when you land, you're going to want that bolt to go all the way through your engine mount instead of being like halfway through it. So I think I'm going to pick up some longer hardware and then use that to install. Also, when you put your spacer in there, it's the same thing with the other side, but it doesn't go all the way through. So that distance right there is taking up a little bit of that bolt length that could be going through your engine mount, keeping everything secure. So I'm gonna go to the hardware store and see what I can find, taking these as my reference. So I just got back from the hardware store, and they actually didn't have any of this hardware, but I took this bolt out the other side of the bike, so right now there's just one bolt in for the engine mounts, but you can see how that engagement is like from here to here. So that's how much of the bolt is actually sticking in the engine mount when it should be about this long. So I got this much empty space. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll put these in the bike, but I'm going to go ahead and order longer bolts for this, just because I'm not necessarily comfortable with doing everything, and I got less voltage holding the engine to the rest of the bike. But I'll continue the install. Also, I'll get some Loctite in there once I get the actual bolts that I'll be using for this install. Alright, so now I got the race rails sitting there. They're snug but loose enough so that I can do the back. Just move them out of the way. And I got that done on both sides. I got enough space to work on the back, but it's holding the position in the front. I took some measurements of the bolts so that I can order those new ones, so that I could be more confident in the structural integrity of the system we're installing here. Right, for the rear, go ahead and I've loosened this nut, which exposes that. That's actually a bolt that goes all the way through, and Impaktech provides you with a replacement with the spacers on the end to make up for that space right there. So we're gonna go ahead up. And that through. Yank that out. And replace that with this. I'm gonna go ahead and, well, I don't think there's any favorites. I think it doesn't matter. Let's find out. I'm gonna go ahead and say it does matter. So if you're sitting on the bike, this bolt comes out this way, and that is going to correspond to this bolt. It's a lock. It's got a nylon washer in it, so it's a lock nut. So that's going to act as the head. So I'm going to put it in the bike this way. And then on this other side, I've got the other spacer, a washer, a lock washer, and then another nut. And then that's all going to get snugged up on the other side of this, that part. Got this part situated. I got the spacer in there. I got the hole lined up. Got my rod. Come over to the other side. I've got that spacer slipped in there. I'm gonna come up, and then with your washer, and go through everything. Gonna come out the other side, and then now gets a washer. Make sure your rounded side. It's got a flat side and a rounded side. Got that going on. Lock washer. Boom. And then nut. And that is gonna get snugged up. Not cross-threaded. It's gonna get snugged up. Well, you get the idea. It's gonna get snugged up just like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten that up. Tighten up the front, and then we'll move on to actually putting the bushings on. Alright, so I got the rear snugged up. I got the front tightened. So everything is on there. When I get the new bolts, I'll look up a legit torque spec for those engine mounts, because I know they have one. They have to have one. But I don't want to risk stripping out that aluminum. I can't see nothing from there. Also, if I had a lathe, I would even venture to turn down those bushings that are in there. But I think I'll just leave that. This one, this bushing, seems like it's a decent bit further out than the other one. And also, that outer diameter of that bushing doesn't quite meet up with the inner diameter of the frame tube. So it looks like there's room for there to be some play in there. And that is also a larger gap on this side than there is on that side. But in the event of it falling over, if this does bend, because it's only mounted by 2 points, I guess that would be more space, allowing it to bend without hitting your fairing. If that even matters at this point, because I already drilled a hole in it. But let's go ahead and put those bushings in. For the bushings, bumpers, whatever you want to call them, got 4 of them. They just slide right in, try and line the hole up. And they were nice enough to give self-tapping screws, but they already have holes in them, so driving that in should not be difficult at all. So there's the finished product. Impaktech Race Rails, installed on the Ninja 400. Got to get longer bolts so it goes all the way through the engine mount, but we are protected. I also noticed that the bushings, because they're screwed in on one side, they have a little bit of play in them, but that should be fine. And just as a little test, went ahead, laid it very gently on the ground. But you can see that bushing holding it. We got tire, bushing, other tire, kickstand just barely touching the ground, foot, peg, barely touching the ground. That scraped, but that's what that's for. Didn't even touch the shifter. Look at that. That's beautiful. That's awesome. Love it, love it, love it. Here we are on the other side. Got her laid down. This one's even closer. We got front tire, bushing, just barely missed the brake pedal. I got this foot peg, which doesn't have, I think I lost it. I could have swore when I got this bike that was still there, but that's on the ground. Exhaust is safe. And we got the other tire. One thing I will say, now that I'm sitting on the bike, if your foot is back on the peg, you're pretty clear of that mounting point. But when you go to engage your brake or the shifter, it's right there at your leg. Like, you could even hit it. If you bang your knee into the side of the tank, you're also hitting that point. I'm thinking I'm gonna get some like tennis racket handle wrap or something and try to wrap that, make that more pleasant for my shin to touch up against. Or maybe it's just a matter of getting used to having that in your way, because if you're sitting square, even when I put my leg down, I could hit my knee on that, but I just would have to shift my foot out a little bit when I come up to a stop sign. But overall, pretty secure. Thinking about mounting a camera right there. Get some footage from there going.